Holy crap.
People persist in doubting the evidence.
Don't run and hide. Don't be afraid. Don't turn away any longer. The truth will set you free.
If the game is rigged, change the game.
You're listening to Jimmy Church Fade to Black.
Game changer, game changer, game changer, game changer. The Game Changer Radio Network.
Turning all of our antennas towards Jimmy Church.
And now, your host, the captain of conspiracy, the prince of paranormal. This ain't your daddy's radio network show. This is Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
All right. Tuesday. Yeah. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Today is Tuesday, June 30th. What's cracking, everybody? 182 days of the new year. 183 days left. As always, we are live from the City of Angels studios right here in downtown Burbank, California. The very gates of hell. It's hot. COA Vapor. Makers of the Fade to Black e-juice, and it's called Fader Loops. Just go to the COA banner right there at JimmyChurchRadio.com. You can use the promo code Jimmy, Jimmy, for the Fader Not Special. I'd like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, east and west, north and south, up and down, far and near. This is Fade to Black. For KJCR and the Game Changer Network and KGRA, the planet, I am your oh-so-humble host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? Man, Twitter's on fire tonight, huh? Everybody's here. Man, I'm fired up. It rained for like 3 minutes about a half hour ago. I thought it was going to let loose and cool things off. It was like the heavens just spitting. Clearing its throat. What's up, everybody? Man, I'm fired up. Great show tonight. Tonight we've got very special guest. Linda Zimmerman is with us. We're going to be talking ufology and a bunch of other things, but the Hudson Valley UFO incident. Well, if you call a century an incident. We'll be talking about that tonight. She said, let's take phone calls. I said, okay, we can. We can do that. 323-825-5045. You can also Skype in Fade to Black and the number 14 if you would like to do that. And we'll see if we can get to calls in the last segment tonight. Fired up, though. And after last night's show, and I just got to say this really quick, Serena Wright Taylor and Dana Dunn last night, I had the most amazing time. It was a great show. And how do we top that? Well, it is, as Kat just said, it's Femme Fatale week. Man, remember that band, Femme Fatale? Kat, do you remember Femme Fatale? What was, what was that lead singer's name? Saw them probably a half a dozen times here in Hollywood. Femme Fatale. I think they're out of Phoenix or something. Arizona band. Femme Fatale. What was her name? Somebody tweet in right now. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Femme Fatale. What was her name? I almost want to say Lynn Lewis, but that wouldn't be right. Okay. Kat, I'm counting on you to have Femme Fatale's lead singer. What was her name? Get that in here now. Okay? All right. Let's go. It's a very special day here in Fade to Black for a lot of different reasons. Oh. Let me back up. Somebody had just tweeted, how can I get a Fade to Black shirt? Go to Jimmy Church Radio, click on the banner, Black Market, or click on my mug, the one where I'm wearing the Fade to Black shirt, take you right there. Go. We shipped out over the last couple of days. We probably shipped out, I don't know. It was a lot. We shipped a lot of shirts. And thank you, everybody. Okay? It's a way to support the show and run around your neighborhood with a Fade to Black shirt. And you know what? All kidding aside, it's a good-looking shirt. It's a good-looking shirt. I'd wear it. I would. All right. Fade to Black shirts. Go get you one. JimmyChurchRadio.com. Lorraine Lewis. Rita comes in. That's right. Lorraine Lewis, the singer of Fade to Black. She was cool. The singer of Fade to Black. The singer of Femme Fatale. Lorraine Lewis, man. She was cool. She was cool. She was a little, for a minute here in Hollywood, she was a little iconish. She was an icon. That was it. Femme Fatale. Good band. Good band. Okay. Where was I? I was going somewhere. Oh, special show today. Linda Zimmerman is on. And tomorrow we have Betsy Lewis for our Femme Fatale week. But it's the birthdays today. And you know, I'm gonna talk a little bit. I'm gonna talk a little music tonight, and I have all of this news you don't know anything about. I got to that, and I skipped over it last night because what was it? Chris Squire, I think, was what I talked about yesterday. But today is a special day, and how do I say this? I don't want to say. I just want to say this in the right way, but. We do a lot of things on Fade to Black. And for all of the new listeners that are coming in, this is a live show. It's broadcast around the world. This is a live show. And we always get to the guest at the bottom of the hour. The show is 3 hours long, and we do a 2.5 hour conversation with a guest each night. The first half hour is me blabbing, and I do it well. But it's the things that influence me, the things that make my brain work are what I like to talk about. And it's really funny to me because we have our audience. I've slowly figured out that everybody is just like me. And I dig that. So tonight, I can't help but talk about a birthday today. Well, there's two. And there's two big ones, but one that really influenced me a lot. So I'm going to do Phil Anselmo first, the singer for Pantera. He's 47 years old. Phil, again, a game changer, true game changer. But the other one is this, Yngwie Malmsteen. Yngwie Malmsteen is 52 years old. Now, before I get to that, what I was leading up to for anybody that's new to the show, and, you know, the show is about conspiracies, and it's about time travel, and it's about ufology and ghosts and the paranormal and lost civilizations and ancient history and, oh, man, you know, all of that stuff. That's what this show is. But how did I get to where I am at now? Houday Warrior just posted a picture of Lorraine Lewis. Yep, that's her. Yeah, it was a good band too, Femme Fatale. So, and talking about things that make my brain tick. How did I get to where I am today? How, you know, doing a show like this? Well, just let me say that if you go to another show, another network or anything, and you branch off of this and you go and listen to somebody that's talking about the paranormal or UFO, you know what you're not going to get on that show? you're not going to get what that person, why are they here? And this is a one-stop shop. And let me tell you something. Yngwie friggin' Malmsteen, Yngwie J. Malmsteen, changed music. Period. Love him or hate him, that doesn't really matter. It doesn't. Because Yngwie J. Malmsteen, and the J is there because there's a lot of other Yngwie Malmsteens out there running around, so he sticks the J in there, just to make sure that we know who we're talking about. Yngwie changed things, and he affected me to my very core. When you, and I'm going to talk more about Yngwie after the break, but when you have a few things in life where you can go back and we can look at music history and look at the game changers out there, Beethoven, Bach, Paganini, you can, and move up, there's, you can go into the 20th century and take a look at a few things, those game changers out there. And there were, you got Frank Sinatra, you've got Elvis Presley, you've got guys that, and what I mean by that is you have music before them and music after them. Did they change things? Did they change the world? Elvis certainly did that. Frank did that. Okay. The Beatles did that, certainly. Jimi Hendrix, definitely. There's music before, the world before Jimmy, the world after. Led Zeppelin, game changers. True game changers. Okay? And you can go through the 70s and everything was just kind of, doing its thing. And then, boom, Eddie Van Halen comes along. Changed things. Randy Rhoads changed things. And just as you thought the smoke was starting to clear with Randy Rhoads and Eddie Van Halen, along comes this 18-year-old kid named Yngwie Malmsteen. And he comes to Hollywood, forms a band called Steeler. Or Steeler. Ron Keel was the singer. And things changed. And the first time I heard Hot on Your Heels from the Steeler album, I was like, holy crap. I thought I was getting a grip on music. And I'm listening. And the first time I heard Far Beyond the Sun, I thought this is a game changer. And that's what Yngwie did. And I had posted today on Facebook, and this is no joke. No matter what, every guitar player, I don't care what kind of guitar style, country, whatever, classical, whatever, it doesn't matter, jazz, does not matter. All the guitar players know who Yngwie was and is. And every single guitar player, once they saw him play the first time or heard him play, everybody wanted to be Yngwie. And that's the truth. They may lie about it and say, he sucks. I don't like that song. You know what? Deep down inside, everybody wanted to be Yngwie. That's the truth. Yngwie changed things, man. I don't know how many times I saw him play live. I don't know. It was a bunch. I don't know how many times I've hung out with him and things like that. But I would look at that guy and just think to myself, because I was into a whole other thing. I was into a whole other style of me. But, man, I just thought, I want to be that guy. I want to play like that. I want to be that guy. And that's it. And the entire world, certainly here in Hollywood, but around the world, everything changed. And Yngwie did that. And whether or not you like the guy, you respect the playing. And that's the truth. Happy birthday, Yngwie J. friggin' Malmsteen. I love you, brother. You can play. When I come back after the break, we're going to throw some Twitter questions out there about Yngwie. We'll ride this thing out to the bottom of the hour. But you know why? It's Yin Yang's birthday today. Let's light up Twitter right now. What's your favorite Yngwie song? See, You get UFOs, time travel, and Yngwie Malmsteen all in one show. That's what I'm talking about. This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We got more right after this. Stay with us. I'll be right back on KGRA, The Planet.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I gotta tell you, it was a relief. National tax experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. It doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil 3-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444. Or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Chase Kletsky with Fate Magazine Radio, and you're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station, where the Fade or Nots rock.
Ice. Fade to Black. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. All right, now check this out. Live on the air, I'm taking a power bite. Oh, yeah. Got to get ready for Linda Zimmerman. It is Femme Fatale Week right here on Fade to Black. And just go to energywave.com. That's energywave.com. Use the promo code KGRA. That's all you got to do for free shipping on your order right now. Energywave.com. Power Bites. Keep them right here in the studio. All right. What a week that we're having here on Fade to Black. And last night with Dana Dunn and Serena Wright Taylor. Tonight, of course, Linda Zimmerman. Tomorrow night, Betsy Lewis. It's a great week. And somebody just tweeted out. I saw it, and it's blown past me, whoever. Oh, yeah. Gabriel just tweeted. He said, bring on the ladies with the big brains. They're my weakness. What? And that's it. This week is a great week here on Fade to Black. Okay. So I'm ready. Linda is here. She's in the batter's box. She's swinging. She is a research chemist turned award-winning author of 30 books on science, history, the paranormal, and fiction. She has lectured across the country and has appeared on numerous TV and radio shows. Linda starred in the documentary In the Night Sky, I Recall a UFO, which was based on her research into the sightings into the Hudson Valley of New York. The film won the 2013 People's Choice Award at the International UFO Congress in Arizona. Her 2 UFO books are In the Night Sky, the Hudson Valley UFOs, and she is currently working on a 3rd book on the subject. I would like to welcome for the first time here on Fade to Black, Linda Zimmerman. Hi, Linda. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
It's a great night, man. You're here.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Linda, I start off with everybody, because you're a first timer, you're a rookie to the show. So I always do a little disclaimer, which is this. It's just you and I hanging out in my living room talking. Where we start is where we start. Where we end is where we end. And hopefully we're still friends. Are you ready?
Bring it on.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome to the show. And, I want to do this really quick. And it's kind of funny. On this show, although, with the focus being the paranormal and ufology and all of my favorite things in Egypt and lost civilizations and time travel and all those great subjects that I'm here to learn about and that I've studied my whole life. You know what? But we also throw in a little music, and we throw in movies, and we talk about the things that stir me and kind of made me who I am today. I'm a weird guy. But there's something, and today was a big birthday out there. And I'm just going to ask you really quick. Were you a rocker? Were you a rocker chick growing up? Were you into the rock and roll?
I was very much into the punk rock. Yes. And
see? Okay. We can go right there. So,
no, let's move on.
No. Well, see, this is the thing. Is everybody becomes who they are. For it's a crazy road, that life. You're taking left turns and right turns, and somehow you end up on this show tonight. And and that journey is always an interesting one. And I think everybody's music background says a lot about them. And don't be ashamed of who you are. Okay, all right. We'll let it go. But I'm going to ask you that: who was your band growing up? If you were in the punk thing, and I was too. So,
well, I did like the Sex Pistols at that time of my life.
Nothing wrong with that.
So what can I say? But I like all kinds of music.
Okay, all right. Well, the Sex Pistols still to this day, I think that's the greatest punk album ever made, and they started it all. Without them, there was nothing else, and
right.
that came after them. But it's funny because that album stands on its own. To me today, it sounds like it was made yesterday. It sounds so fresh today, and that's when you've done something completely original.
Right.
And that's what they did. Okay. Because I was going to ask you another question, but if you were if you were in that thing, you would never know who I was about to bring up. So, okay. Anyway, it's Yngwie Malmsteen's birthday today, and it's but you have to be one of those big-haired rockers with the polar opposite of the punk scene. Here in L.A., you know what was funny, Linda? There was through like 1980 to 1986, 87, 88, there was like a 8-9 year run of a crazy music scene here in LA, and it was two-sided. You had the punk scene, and you had that big hair spandex, early MTV thing going on at the same time here in Hollywood, and they fought for the same soil, and it was a pretty interesting time here because both genres of music were blowing up at the same time. And it was a very competitive scene, but it was a turf war that was going on here. It was very interesting. So, okay. Anyway, let's, I have to go here. How does a research chemist end up on a paranormal radio show?
Well, it's been a long, strange road. Our research department was closing down, and this was over 20 years ago, and I had always thought someday when I retired, I would become a writer. And I decided, well, let's see what the fates have in store for me, and I will try to start writing now. And I never had to put the lab coat back on. But I had intended to write fiction and history, and people started asking me about paranormal things in my area of the Hudson Valley. And I always loved that subject as a kid. Couldn't get enough of paranormal, sci-fi, you name it. And so I dipped my toe into the paranormal realm, and, dozens of books later, here I am on your show.
And so you give us your background. Were you born in the Hudson Valley too as well, and your family?
Yes. Born and raised and lived my whole life here, from a small, quiet town, where I was a nerd. My favorite thing during the summer was to walk to the local library and, read science and archaeology magazines. And I was an amateur astronomer from the time I was, kindergarten, first grade, and into all the sciences. And I thought that would be my lifelong career, but the lure of writing was stronger, and so that's how, in a nutshell, how that all happened.
And what was it like? Take us back a little bit, because what was it like growing up there? I mean, by all accounts, we're talking about, when you speak of the Hudson Valley, you're talking, it's Norman Rockwell, it's America, it's all of that. It's, families, fathers working, you know what I mean? It was all of that. It's Americana. So
right.
Take us back to your childhood, because the history is going to say that everything kicked off in the Hudson Valley in the early 80s. But that's certainly not the case, and we're going to talk about all of that. But what was it like growing up there, and did your family talk about, UFOs? Did you have friends that had sightings prior to 1982?
Well, my family, nobody was really into ghosts or UFOs or any of the paranormal things. I read as much as I could about it because I was just fascinated, but there were an awful lot of sightings growing up in the late 60s, and it was just something that I thought happened everywhere all the time, because there was always something in the paper or somebody in the area talking about it, and to me, it wasn't something unusual. As a little kid, okay, there are UFOs out there. And like I said, I loved astronomy and always out there with a telescope. And, I knew it was a big, vast universe out there. So to my young mind, it made sense that there were other species, other beings out there and visiting us.
And your family, am I understanding you correctly? Are you saying that you had, as a child, you were seeing things in the air?
Well, I didn't quite know what I was seeing out there using the telescope. There would be, sometimes these lights moving along, and, I'd say, well, maybe it's a satellite or NASA is doing something. So I never had anything really close, any kind of close encounter or a saucer going by or anything. It really wasn't until I was about 19 that I had my first very intense, no doubt about it, confirmation type sighting.
Well, okay, let's not move off of that. What did you see at 19, and what year was this?
This would have been about 1979.
Okay.
And
before things blew up,
right,
for a lack of a better way to put it. But okay, so this is 1979, and
right.
And I want to set the stage for everybody a little bit. The first time that I drove through the Hudson Valley, when I looked around, I thought, wow, this is where it all happened. But it was hilly, it was green, it was beautiful, and it just looked to me like the perfect spot if I was visiting, Earth. It would be a place where you can kind of see a little bit of everything. You have forest, you have urban area, you know what I mean? There's a city there, but there's also country too as well. And
right.
And so where were you in the lay of the land, and describe that to us?
About 20 miles or so north of New York City, which was small town suburbia.
Right.
At that point. and I was studying for a chemistry test in my furry red robe. I'll never forget this. And the phone rings, and it's a friend's mother who knew I was interested in UFOs. And she was in a town a few miles away, and she said, "Linda, go out of the house right now. Something just passed over our house headed your way." So in my bathrobe, I go running outside, and sure enough, there were 3 very round, soft, whitish yellow lights moving there was one in the lead and one just slightly behind either side. Silent, just gliding along. So my boyfriend and his friend were there, and I said, "We're getting in the car and we're following this thing." So we jump in the
Yeah. Right on. Yeah, go. That's exactly what I would have done.
We are driving after this thing, and one continues going east, one splits off to the north, one splits off to the south, and they go out of sight. Well, I'm not done with this, because one of the books I had read as a kid was one of the Frank Edwards books, and he had a picture that somebody had taken from a state park, where we used to go fishing as a kid, and it was maybe 10, 15 miles away. And I said, a UFO was there once. What if? It's worth a drive. So we hauled ass up there as fast as we could. I'm still just wearing my furry red bathrobe there, and we're sitting by this lake waiting, and wouldn't you know, comes one of the lights back from the east, from the north, from the south, and right near where we're sitting, they're coming. It's like a collision course, and we're flipping out. We're saying this, they're going to collide. There's going to be this explosion. Well, they did come together in this brilliant blue flash of light, and as one pulsing blue object slowly lowered in a very controlled manner to the top of the adjacent hill, and this glow was just pulsing through the woods. And at this point was when the state trooper showed up and wanted to know what was a 19-year-old girl in a bathrobe doing with 2 guys in a car in the middle of a state park. So it was a very interesting situation. And I didn't want to appear like I was drunk or high, but I said, "Turn around and look." So he turns around, and his expression just like he had seen a ghost. And he turned around and he said, "Get out of here. Just get out of here now." So,
wow.
Yeah,
wow.
He didn't want to deal with this at all. And we took off. A few seconds later, he passed us. He went flying past us to get away from this thing. So it was probably a good thing he had showed up, because I was ready to go charging into the woods after this thing, which, in retrospect, probably wouldn't have been the most prudent thing to do under the circumstances. But
right. Yeah, 2 words, Travis Walton.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. But that weekend, when I had, a day off, my boyfriend and I hiked to the top of that hill, and we found a lot of broken tree branches at the top, and there was a lot of charred wood. Now, I know people do have, campfires and things, but it certainly looked like something big and heavy and with generating a lot of heat had landed on that hilltop recently.
Were there any reports in the local papers, or were there anybody else, any other witnesses?
There was something in the paper, because people, this was Rockland County, where I was at the time. People all across Rockland County saw it. And it was just, one of these dismissive, people across the county saw some lights, officials say nothing to worry about.
Now, how about, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay.
How about your boyfriend and his? Were they scared? It did sound like you were scared. How were you guys at that moment?
It was such an adrenaline rush. None of us were scared. We were just in absolute awe. And they were ready to run into the woods with me. So it would have been the Travis Walton trio.
Right.
You know? And when I was writing the book, all these years later, my now ex-boyfriend, I called him up. I said, do you remember the night we jumped in the car? And he remembered it just as vividly as I did.
And the state trooper, did you ever chase him down or find out who he was?
No, I didn't know who he was, and he was clearly so freaked out. I doubt he would have spoken to me anyway. But maybe he's listening tonight, and he'll call up and say, "Oh, you're the girl in the red furry bathrobe."
Well, and it says something that for a state trooper patrolling up there, that's what they do. I get that. And finding a girl, that's his moment, so he can be the public, servant and save the girl in her bathrobe from an awkward moment from two guys. I get that. And for him to forget all the reason why he was there was just immediately forgotten. And he tells you guys to get out of there. He didn't even ask, for his report. He didn't get your name or anything, right?
Oh, no.
Yeah,
no.
exactly.
Second he saw that pulsing blue light, all bets were off. Just get the hell out of here now.
How far away do you think the craft was back in the woods from where you and the state trooper were?
Well, I know the elevation was around 1,200 feet, and we were at lake level less than, I'd say, quarter to a half a mile.
And it just lit up. And was this in the evening, or was it still daylight?
It was nighttime. It was quite dark.
Okay. So it just illuminated the area.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that must have been incredible. And of course he bailed. Now and then let's move on. But when he bailed, he was driving away. He wasn't like driving to the object. He cut and ran.
Yeah, and he passed us. That's how fast he was going.
That's interesting. Oh man. Okay, so that's 1979.
Right.
Things, started to kick off in 1982. We'll get to that moment. Was there anything else that happened to you between 1979 and 1982, or yourself or the area in general?
Sure. There were still a lot of reports, tidbits in the newspapers, and people would say, they'd come into work or school and say, hey, my cousin upstate saw this, or, in the nearby town. And so it really is a real misconception that it was like a switch went off and it's 1982, time for the UFOs. It was ongoing. And of course, when 82 came, it was, the activity multiplied greatly, but there was never a point where, like a year would pass and we'd say, gee, I haven't heard anything yet.
Right,
it was always going on.
Did you, and I have to ask you, did you go home and tell your parents?
I was telling family and friends, and, they didn't doubt it, but especially when it came out in the paper. But what do you make of a story when somebody tells you that? And my family knew I was weird anyway, so they weren't too surprised that I witnessed this.
Yeah, and now history. I'm going to stay on your family for a second. History now is what it is. The Hudson Valley UFO incident. If you can call a century of sightings a singular incident, but now you have that to. I don't want to say vindicate, but it certainly validates your story back to your parents. What's it like when you guys get together now? Do you guys talk about it? And are there other sightings? And Thanksgiving dinner, is this what is spoken about?
No, I usually don't bring up any of that unless somebody asks. Unless something, unless recently I've had a really amazing interview, I might bring it up. And actually, my nephew Paul just emailed me a story tonight, knowing that I'm interested in it. So they're supportive. They don't doubt it, but it's not their thing the way it's my thing.
Right. And but also. There are, I don't know if I can go as far as say tens of thousands of witnesses in the Hudson Valley to this, but it could be a number like that. Did your parents ever see anything in the 1982 period and after?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
They never mentioned having any sightings, but they certainly read all about it as everyone else did.
Now, when we come back, we're going to be up against a break here in a couple of seconds. And when we come back after the break, I want to go back in time to the turn of the century when the sightings first started there in the Hudson Valley. And then let's get to we'll build up to 1982. But the other thing that I want to talk about right after the break, and we can address it now, and then we'll pick it up after the break, is something that has bothered me a long time about the Hudson Valley incident. Is that in ufology, everything else seems to be on the front burner. And different subjects and whatever, you can just pick one. We were talking earlier, you have the Phoenix Lights, you have Rendlesham, and you have Roswell and Kecksburg. You have things that people talk about first, but for some reason, as big and as documented and photographed and videotaped and news reports and witnesses and highway traffic stopping for these sightings in the Hudson Valley, the Hudson Valley UFO incident is like the redheaded stepchild in ufology. Why do you think that is?
I am completely baffled by that. When I went to the UFO Congress a couple of years ago with the book and the film, and these are UFO enthusiasts, I was stunned that not only were they not familiar with the 1980s Hudson Valley flap, most of them never even heard of the Hudson Valley. And, if you paid them, they couldn't find it on a map.
Right.
So I don't get it. But it is my quest to make people get it and realize and appreciate and pay attention to this incredible part of our UFO history. Yeah,
about a year ago, I was at a conference. And I was speaking with some people outside, got a little crowd going, and somebody hits me with, well, and what about you? Jimmy, and I said, well, you got a few things that I think are really interesting. And one of them, and these are people that I respect too, as well. I want to say that. And I said, Hudson Valley, man, that is one of the, it just, oh, really? Okay. And to get the reaction that I did, a couple of them were falling short of saying, I haven't heard of that one. And I thought, how did we get here? How can something like that is, so many witnesses and video and photographs and documentation and newspapers and television and everything that was involved. And it's New York. It's New York City. It's the Hudson Valley, man. And to get that reaction out of him, I was very disappointed, and I just don't get it. I don't understand. I don't.
No, it makes no sense. And when I give a lecture, even in the Hudson Valley, when I speak about it, people come up to me and say, I lived my whole life here, and I didn't know about this. I don't know what it is, but as I said, I'm hoping to bring awareness and change that.
Well, let's take that break, and we'll start the awareness in 2 minutes. Let's do this.
Sounds good.
All right. This is Fade to Black. Tonight, Linda Zimmerman is with us. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We're going to talk about the Hudson Valley UFO. She says flap. I say incident. I call it crazy. We'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRAradio.com.
Hey everybody, what's up? Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and check this out. The 2015 MUFON Symposium will be held this September 24th through the 27th in beautiful downtown Irvine, California. Expanding ufology, opening new doors in academia, industry, and media. Former Defense Minister of Canada Paul Hellyer will be there in person. Former CNN news anchor Cheryl Jones, TV news journalist Jaime Maussan, and MUFON's chief photo analyst Mark D'Antonio. They're just a few of the growing list of names for the 2015 event. It's September 24th through the 27th at the beautiful Hotel Irvine. Get your tickets today at MUFONsymposium.com. That's MUFONsymposium.com. Go Beckley Tepe.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Did you ever turn to your radio for your favorite talk show to find that it's been preempted for this?
In the air, to deep right center. Back goes Lewis to the wall, and it's out of here!
Or this?
And I'm ashamed of you, Hillary, for voting for it.
Do you have a favorite talk radio program that's not available in your city? Just go to TalkStreamLive.com for links to the best streaming talk radio shows. At TalkStream Live, you will find live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All your favorites are here. With such a large selection, you will also discover some new favorites. On the go and still want to listen? With a mobile smartphone, simply type TalkStream Live on your internet browser. Now you can take internet radio with you. You will also find hundreds of music, news, and sports streams. Best of all, the TalkStream Live directory is free and there's never a login required. Remember TalkStreamLive.com, the fastest route between you and your favorite talk radio show.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Linda Zimmerman is with us. Tomorrow night, Betsy Lewis. It's Femme Fatale Week right here on Fade to Black. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Also, if you have any questions for Linda or myself during the show, you can hashtag F2BQ. That's Fade to Black Questions. Hashtag F2BQ on Twitter, and I will see them right here. Linda, let's back up and let's discuss the history of what has gone on there. Not only in New York and New York State and the Hudson Valley, but certainly Connecticut and the immediate area, and New Haven, and we can't even leave out, of course, Betty and Barney Hill, and the history of the area. Can you take us through that a little bit?
Well, certainly some of the, best known cases have happened in the New England area, and historically, you can go back to colonial times where things have been documented and written about strange craft, strange lights in the sky, which, in 17th and 18th century New England, you really, once you can rule out anything astronomical, you have to wonder, what's left. But for the Hudson Valley in particular, I've been able to take the timeline back in a documented form back to 1909, when we had our own mysterious airship incident going on for several months.
And that was in 1909.
Yes.
Was it the classic airship sightings that were going on from 1890 through that period with those types of descriptions?
Well, these were only appearing at night, and what people were seeing were very bright lights on whatever it was able to both hover and go very, very quickly. And if you're familiar with the state of aviation, the Wright brothers had stick and fabric planes that could not hover, obviously, and couldn't go much over 40 miles an hour. And, we didn't have Zeppelins here. We had a pretty poor example of dirigibles that could maybe stay in the air a couple of hours and couldn't go very quickly. So we can rule out, that these were military craft or civilian, and they began around the summer of 1909, and sightings spread to upstate New York, the Rochester area, and by Christmas they had spread down to New York City and up as far as the Boston area. And one night there was a sighting that lasted over 4 hours from Boston to New York. And again, we did not have aircraft that could stay in the air and cover those kind of distances.
Why does it seem, certainly to me and all the research that I have done into the Hudson Valley and New York in general, at night, everything seemed to happen at night. Have you been able to get to the bottom of that? Or were there some daytime sightings in the Hudson Valley that I don't know about?
Oh, there have been numerous sightings. One that stands out in particular, a good example was 1953 in the town of Saugerties, which is up the Hudson River here, about an hour away. And some kids were outside playing, and they stop because they see this massive cigar-shaped object in the sky, very low in the sky, and it had rings of lights, alternating red and green rings of lights going around it. Well, this was the Cold War. Kids are thinking, we're going to get bombed, so they run and tell their mothers, and they think it's the Russians are, it's a Russian bomb, so they call the police. The police realize they can't do anything about it. So they call Stewart Air Force Base, which was the hub of Project Blue Book sightings for this area. That's where all the reports came in. They scramble 3 fighter jets, which come roaring up the Hudson River. You can imagine the panic which ensued.
Right.
From that. And many witnesses watched as these 3 fighter jets approached this cigar-shaped broadside, and it moved ever so slightly and then just went straight up in the air and was gone in a flash. And these jets just flew through open air. I mean, it was gone. And in the paper the next day, it was said, don't worry. Nobody needs to panic. It was only a weather balloon. So daylight sighting. At least hundreds of people saw it. Clearly, the police saw it. Clearly,
the Air Force saw it.
Yeah. Right. The fighter pilots saw it. Yet it was dismissed as they always try to dismiss it.
And let's go chronologically, like in a linear fashion. What's the next sighting after 1953?
Well, there were numerous daylight sightings. There were a lot of disc-shaped craft, I guess you want to call them the classic flying saucers that were seen late 50s, mostly in the 60s. In fact, that photograph I was mentioning that in the Frank Edwards book that, inspired me was a classic metallic flying saucer photographed, and I believe that was 1966. And there were several other. One of the things I did in the Hudson Valley UFO book was I went through every single Hudson Valley Blue Book case and came across quite a few things I had never heard of that they, tried to bury and discredit. Daylight sightings, another photograph of a daylight disc. And again, in the 70s, there were discs. Late 70s, there were starting to be some triangles, mostly at night, but some daylight triangle sightings. So we kind of historically 50s up to the massive triangles of the 80s, we kind of went from cylinder cigar shaped to the flying saucer discs and finally to the triangles.
And J. Allen Hynek, did he? I know that he was aware of what was going on in the Hudson Valley. What was his conclusions that he had come to? I mean, there's a follow-up question to this, but what was his opinion?
Well, he came to the Hudson Valley 83, 84, and he interviewed a lot of the witnesses. Dennis Sant was one in particular. You may have recognized the name from Unsolved Mysteries, and he gave a lot of interviews at the time. He saw the massive triangle hovering silently over his house, and so he was very credible. Dr. Hynek came to interview him, and he from there he realized this was, an amazing series of sightings, and interviewed a lot of people in the area. They had a conference at local high school where they expected a few dozen people. Over 800 people packed the auditorium, and there were many more witnesses who couldn't even get in the door. And so that was one of the reasons why he co-authored the book Night Siege, in which he concentrated on that period of time of the massive triangles of the 1980s. So he was convinced it was a real legitimate phenomenon.
With all of this, and I remember Night Siege, the Hudson Valley, what was that called? The Hudson Valley UFO sightings or incident or something. I remember that book, and it really freaked me out because the book showed the scale of what was going on. And in my mind's eye back then, when all of this was in the papers and the book had come out, it just seemed like the city was being terrorized. That's what I was picturing. Just this massive unveiling of what was going on. And I thought that there was going to be some breakthrough that was going to come off of Hudson Valley. And again, like I said earlier, why does this period of time just go unnoticed today and unrecognized? I just don't get it, because it's it's crazy. Okay, let's back up. The evening of, I think it was New Year's Eve, when we say 1982, technically it was 1981, was the first sighting that had come in from a retire. Was the police officer retired, or was he still active?
I believe he was retired at the time.
Okay, what happened on that night?
Well, he amongst others, and again, it wasn't just him. Some people just saw lights in the sky. Others saw huge triangular craft. I even spoke to people who said, no, it was a circle of lights. So we can, we can't narrow it down exactly, but we can say activity for whatever reason picked up then, and there were hundreds, and then there would be thousands of sightings in a night. So that was really the kickoff to that whole amazing era.
And what happened? I know that it was multicolored. My memory says that it was V-shaped, and he described a huge craft, and it had. I could be completely wrong here, Linda, and correct me, but Christmas lights is what my memory says. It was something to that effect up in the sky. Is that what he saw?
Yeah, people from that time were describing a city of lights, or lit up like a Christmas tree, multicolored, flashing every color of the rainbow. And there were both, and we generally lump them into triangles, but there were also V-shaped, which is what I saw, and then boomerang-shaped. Some people describe chevron-shaped, but generally you were seeing a triangular shape of lights, unless you were lucky enough to be one of the many thousands who stood under them as they hovered at treetop level.
Right.
And then you saw every little detail.
And again, why? I want to stay right on this because, but the question has to. But why the Hudson Valley? Why this particular area? And this went on. This went on for years. It wasn't a singular incident. This went on for a long time. So we have a lot to talk about. But why the Hudson Valley?
If it was only the 1980s, I might be inclined to say it had something to do with the Indian Point nuclear power plant, where a lot of the sightings took place. But since we know the history goes back generations, I don't know. Is it the water? Is it the geology? There is a minor fault line running through here. During that 1980s, a lot of the sightings took place over old mines where there was magnetite.
Right.
And very strong, earth electromagnetic fields. Is there some way they can tap into that? I don't know. I'm speculating, but there is clearly something here of value to them, and has been long before our power lines and nuclear reactors went up.
Were you able to go back and interview the original witnesses from the early 80s?
Hundreds of them.
Okay, so I knew you were going to say that. I just set you up for it. That was a total setup. Okay, let's go back to these witnesses. I'm depending on my memory. I want to know what they saw, because I remember things like too slow to be an airplane, it would have fallen out of the sky. Too big to be an airplane, the thing was friggin' huge. It didn't make any sound. There was no engine noises. It was a spectacle of lights. It was V-shaped. They were putting on a show for it. All of these things that I read, it was spectacular beyond belief. Take me back to those original witnesses, and what did they see?
Well, you've pretty much summed it up. I think one of the most spectacular sightings was of 3 teachers who I interviewed. This was in 1983, March 24th of 83, just a week after one of the biggest sightings. Again, the following week, they're coming home from New York City from graduate classes at Fordham University, and as they're driving up the Taconic State Parkway, they see these strange lights up ahead, and they knew there weren't any tall towers or skyscrapers that should have that kind of lights, and then they started finding all these people pulled off to the side of the road. So they get out of the car, and right above them is a massive dark black triangle, easily the size of a football field. They said it just engulfed the sky. You had to turn your head, 180 degrees to get the whole scope of this object in. One woman recalled very brilliantly colored lights. Another woman just recalled that everything was lit up like a nighttime football game. And eerily quiet was the term they used. Not a sound. Nobody spoke. Everybody stood there silently. Now, an event like that if it lasted 10 seconds would change your life.
Sure.
They stood there for 20 solid minutes with this craft not moving, not making a sound, nobody speaking. Finally, one of the poor women, her nerves were shot, and she said, we just have to get out of here. So they don't know how much longer it remained there. But that I heard time and again, football field size, silent, black, multicolored lights would descend to maybe 80, maybe 100 feet above the ground and just sit there. And yet those who did see these objects move away said in a blink of an eye, boom, it would just take off.
To be clear, I want my audience to understand exactly what we're talking about here. This was on a freeway, on a highway, where all of the traffic had pulled over to the side of the road. I have read account after account after account of this evening, and when I think about this and I try to picture what's going on, it's an amazing. This is not a singular witness. We are talking about dozens and dozens and dozens of cars pulled over on the freeway. This object flies over slowly. It's the same description from everybody. This triangular dark craft that was lit up flew over, and on this particular evening, the switchboards were lit up. There were hundreds and hundreds of calls and reports that had come in. This wasn't a singular sighting by one person. We're talking about the Hudson Valley. And this thing flew over, just like, and Linda, I like the way that you put it. It was, for 20 minutes, for a half an hour. This wasn't something that just happened and flew away or disappeared in a blink of an eye. This went on for a long period of time, with everybody standing on the side of the freeway, talking about it, pointing at it, and looking at it. That's exactly how it went down, isn't it?
Absolutely. And very rarely did somebody see one of these massive triangles for a very short period of time. It wanted to be seen. It would, the Route 84 through this area, you have cars and trucks racing by. Everybody would stop. I mean, they would just, I don't know, the names of your busy highways, but imagine
the 405. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Imagine everybody just pulls over, stops in the middle of the road, gets out of their car and watches this for minute after minute after it would hover, maybe slowly move along the highway. And you know, this was not something that was trying to hide. This was, look at us, we're the size of a football field. We can travel as fast as we want to. We can hover as long as we want to. We make no sound. You know, look at us. And yet, how many people across the country know about it?
How did the media treat it the next day? What was in the papers?
It was very
television?
mixed. There were some, obviously, the reporters who witnessed this, and there were quite a few, were very sympathetic to it, were enthusiastic. There's clearly, this is not our technology, or it's, something beyond description. Yet the overwhelming thing was ridicule. They would rib it. They'd say, oh yeah, the little green men visited the Hudson Valley again last night. There was always that undercurrent of ridicule. And I can't tell you how many people I interviewed who had one of these remarkable sightings, tried to call the police or the local sheriff's office, and were, said, "What are you, drunk?" And they just hang up on them. Or you'd go into work the next day. Many people told me this, and they'd, very excited, want to share their story, and were just so ridiculed and harassed, they never spoke about it again for the next 30 years. So it was a shame, because you could easily have 1,000 people or more with one of these sightings. Yet if you weren't standing under that craft seeing it, yeah, sure. You were drunk. It was a hallucination. You're making it up, mass hysteria. And to complicate things, once this all began, some local pilots thought it would be funny to pretend to be UFOs, and both in small planes and in ultralights would fly at night with their lights on and flashing on and off, trying to fly in formation.
Right.
But the people I interviewed, many of them saw both the silent massive triangle hovering and these hoaxing pilots, and they said there was no comparison. In fact, with the ultralights, they're like giant lawnmower engines. They said you could hear this huge engine sound. You could hear the pilots shouting to one another. But yet, I can't tell you how many people today, when I mention this period of time, they'll say, "What are you paying attention to that to? It was pilots, playing a joke." So,
yeah, I remember reading all of those accounts about the ultralights, which came after, by the way.
Yes.
But nobody, when you're looking up at the sky, whether it's night or daylight, you know the difference between an ultralight and engine sounds and something else. And had it been that the first night back on New Year's Eve in '81, or this incident, this sighting in 1983, it would have been poo-pooed and shot down immediately, as it should, when, with multiple witnesses saying, "Yeah, I know it looked cool, but it was ultralights, man. I heard it. I saw the engines. Or I heard the engines." We would have had those reports. Nobody said that on the evening of 1983. There was no mention of that at all. When the hoax started, which was it the next night or the night after? I know it was soon after that. Everybody laughed about the fact that it was ultralights, and everybody could tell the difference.
Yeah, it was very soon after, and there were actually at least two different groups. Some were using small Cessna-type planes, and then there was the group of ultralight pilots. And I actually devoted a whole chapter to that in the book because the excuse is still so prevalent today. I even went up in an ultralight, risked life and limb, because I wanted to say from experience, no, ultralights do not hover. They are not silent. They cannot fly in formation, and it is illegal to fly at night.
Right.
So they were doing this, and you are telling me that if authorities didn't want this to happen, they couldn't have stopped this? Where was the FAA? Where was, local law enforcement? You're risking lives on the ground, not to mention the stupid pilots, doing the hoaxing. And it really, in this area, the hoaxing kind of stopped when there was a newspaper article where a pregnant woman saw the hoaxing pilots, at first thought it was a UFO and drove off the road.
Right.
And
right.
once they realized, oh my God, we could have killed this woman.
Right.
Suddenly it stopped.
Do you have, I'm going to read this to you in just a second, but do you know of a sighting in Connecticut on August 20th, 1984 of a black triangle in your documentation? Look that up for just a second. Mike just tweeted, and he says, Jimmy, I watched a black triangle for 55 minutes. That was following Route 15, Wilbur Cross Parkway in Connecticut on August 20th, 1984.
Huh.
Yeah.
I'm thumbing through a lot of the sightings that took place in Dutchess and Putnam County along that Route 84 corridor continued on into Connecticut. So that doesn't surprise me at all. We say Hudson Valley sightings, but many of them in the western section of Connecticut experienced the same craft on the same night as well.
Yeah, and Connecticut's right there. I mean, that's
right.
it. I mean, it's just right there. Hey,
right.
Mike, I'm going to ask you to send me some more details on that. Send it to my email, jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com, and I will forward that on to Nancy. I find that very interesting, and if you have any more details, send that to me. But he's very specific. He says right here, August 20th, 1984.
Oh, I'd love to speak to him, or have him get in touch with me with that, because a 55-minute sighting is even more remarkable.
Yeah. He follows it up with, he says, the official story the next morning was that ultracrafts were flying in formation from New Jersey, which is completely ludicrous. That's what he said.
They don't have the range.
Yeah, I think the ceiling for that too is 500 feet. So, which is nothing. I mean, that's it's a quarter of a mile in the air, and and you can hear what an ultralight is and is doing. And also, ultralights are not that stable too as well. And you're right. Trying to fly those in formation at 35 knots or whatever speed they're going is nearly impossible. So,
yeah, absolutely. Witnesses said they could see him bobbing and weaving and
yes.
the slightest breeze. And, one of the ultralight pilots described to me, it's like a cork on the ocean, the way they're bobbing around.
Yeah,
and again, I can't stress enough, it is illegal to fly them after dark. I mean, you have a 30-minute grace period, but these guys were getting away with this, and why was this allowed to happen?
Dennis just tweeted. He said, please ask her about the tops down UFO photo. Whatever happened to those photos?
I am not familiar with the tops down.
Okay. What I think he's referring to now, and somebody just tweeted this earlier, one of the more famous photographs that ever came out of Hudson Valley wasn't the famous V-shaped stuff, but was that the circular one that was lighting up the ground and had the ground lit up below it. and it was kind of a curve shape. What was that, and where was that photograph taken?
Well, I know there was video taken of the circle of lights. That was one of the earlier one with the light trailing behind it.
Yes,
if that's the one they're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes, that's you can find that all over the internet now. But that was a big deal when that came out because someone had remember video you had the big recorder and the huge camera, and that this was actually finally evidence we could all look at. And many people that I have interviewed saw that same thing as well. But the best photo, I think, that came out of that time was taken by a high school photography student who was coming out of school the night of the 24th of March, 1983, when those teachers had their sighting. And he saw a massive, brightly lit triangle shining a beam of light onto the ground. And he took a couple of photos, and the police told him, oh, don't pay any attention to those. It was, later on, they said, oh, it was hoaxing pilots, So he ignored, he put the photo in his attic and ignored it for the next 30 years. And then a newspaper had published it at the time, and fortunately one of the teachers had saved the clipping. So I called him, out of the blue, and he's like, wow, this is a flashback. He's like, why are you interested in that? It was a formation of planes. I said, did you look at your own photo? I said, don't you see it's one solid lit up triangle beaming a light to the ground? And I think it was a bit of a revelation for him because all these decades, he didn't give it a second thought because, you're 17 years old, the cops tell you something, you believe it.
And what about the circle of rings? I'm gonna the one that was shot by the state police officer. I'm gonna post this really quick. This is. I can't see when I look at this. I'm gonna do something that I never do. I never tweet during the show, but I want everybody to see this. And when the description of a formation of planes or ultralights or anything like that, and you look at this picture, how can anybody deduce that from this? And it's the multicolored ring of lights.
Mm-hmm.
So,
absolutely. It's, what most people said, it was just an absolute insult to be told that, they didn't see what they saw, that it was actually planes in formation.
And the circle of lights one, who was the state trooper? And I always have a hard time talking and tweeting at the same time, which is why I don't do this. So I won't do this ever again. I don't like it, everybody, but I did it. Oh, I didn't. You know what I didn't do? Hey, everybody retweet that for me into Fade to Black. Thank you. And I didn't tag it, KGRA. So can you guys tag that Fade to Black and KGRA and get that back out there so everybody can see it? I'm watching Twitter right now. It is completely on fire. And there's another one. I wish you were on Twitter with us. And this triangle is being posted now too from the Hudson Valley. It's a black and white shot. Very interesting. Okay, who was the state trooper that took the circle shot?
The name escapes me. I can't recall.
I think it's one of the most phenomenal UFO images ever in the history of ufology. It's an incredible shot, and I need somebody to just explain that to me. How does this happen? I'm talking about the skeptics. Just explain this one to me, please.
Well, clearly, a lot of people the skeptics would say it was a hoaxed shot. We heard that all the time. Going back to the metallic disc that was photographed in 1966, I should mention what was done to the photographer. The local Air Force Base steward brought him in, shot him up with sodium pentothal, and tried to get him to admit it was a hoax. But he didn't, because it wasn't. And so they discredited him and said, all right, maybe he didn't hoax it, but it was simply a blob of developing fluid. And if you take a look at the photo, clear defined lines with the sun glinting off the metal. The local newspaper studied the negatives and said, no, this was a real object, in the sky. So if they were doing that to people back then, why should they give any credit to, think people who were photographing things in the 70s, 80s, and 90s?
And what about the other witnesses? Were they able to see surfaces or a description of a surface? Because if it's a formation of planes, which I don't think it was, but if it's a formation of planes, then there isn't anything solid in between to complete the triangle. So you're going to see through that and see stars. Were there descriptions of surfaces or metallic shapes and descriptions other than space?
With the giant triangles?
Yes.
Yeah. It was remarkable. It was from everything from like a gunmetal or a stainless steel, like a dark stainless steel, to some people described it, what they saw as like looking at the underside of a bridge, that they saw what looked like girders or beams and possibly rows of rivets. So, that's another thing I can't stress enough, that this wasn't one craft that they were seeing. It was a variety of textures, of lights, of triangles, V's, and boomerangs, all happening, within that span of those several years.
And then I want to come back to this sighting, but do you have a tally of how many reports came in the 80s and eyewitnesses? I know it's in the thousands, but how many reports came in throughout this period?
Well, I've heard estimates that there were 25,000 reports. However, it was very interesting. I went to one of the sheriff's departments where I know for a fact hundreds of people called in, particularly that night in March of '83.
Right.
And I was, tossed around and, politely put up with over the course of months. As I said, look, all I want is I want to see your logbook, which is public record. When somebody calls and says, I saw a UFO, they have to write that down, and whether they choose to then send a patrol car out is, at their discretion, but at least they log the call. So I gave them the specific dates, March 17th, March 24th, 1983. Didn't want to make this too difficult and say, just sit there and look through your books. Well, wouldn't you know, finally I got somebody on the line and said, we looked at those two dates and not a single call came in. And I'm like, really? Well, I have a list of names here who disagree with that, but what can you do?
And did they completely shut you down?
They were very polite about it. Because somebody in the local government had sent me to them. So, they didn't want to completely, blow me off. But, it's miraculous. There's not a single record of any UFO sighting. And that was going to be my first stop, where I had determined I was going to go to every local police station and sheriff's office, sit there with their logbooks and get a tally. I wanted that number. And then I realized, well, I'm fighting a losing battle here because, this should have been the most active nights on record, and yet no record of it at all.
Yeah, and were you able to speak to any police officers or sheriffs or anybody from the area?
Oh, I've spoken to dozens of law enforcement officers who had sightings. There was some state troopers who had a sighting and, wanted to tell the world, and they were told, you did not see that. You will not talk to the newspaper. Nothing happened. And, this one guy said, if I can't get it in the newspaper, if I can't get the story out, what chance do ordinary citizens have?
Yeah, and all of the local papers there were covering it. And so how can, I'll be devil's advocate here for a second, how can the police department say with a straight face that we had no calls, but yet it's reported in the paper, it's reported on television, and traffic is stopped on the freeways? There's something that doesn't jive here with me. And were you aggressive enough to say something like that to them and try to call them on their own BS?
Oh, sure. I was polite about it. But I said, one of your own county officials had the sighting that night and told me he talked to, called several times, and there were actually police officers, law enforcement officers, who went on camera for various shows during that time period, reporting their sightings. So, are the officials then calling them liars, that it never happened? Like you said, it doesn't jive, but a lot doesn't jive about what went on here.
Now let's go to the power station, and that was pretty incredible because that sighting, the description, it was at Indian Point, was that object was 1,000 feet across. Now, that's not small, and it was there. Some reports were 50 feet, 100 feet, 25 feet from the reactor, and it just stood there. Security was involved. Supervisors from Indian Point were involved. What happened at that incident?
Well, there were, again, this is something that a lot of people aren't aware. There were multiple incidents there, but the one that was written about in Night Siege is the one that is most talked about. That yes, this huge craft, apparently they were trying to film it or photograph it, and you couldn't get it all in one frame. It basically was so massive, it just covered the whole reactor site, the sky. A lot of the guards there had their rifles out and were ready to shoot at this thing.
Right.
We're waiting for, what do we do? Do we fire? Do we not fire? There's a lot of conflicting reports as to whether or not there was an actual problem with one of the reactors at the time or perhaps afterwards. Alarms went off. They lost control of a lot of their, systems. Essentially, all hell broke loose, and yet, it didn't really get the press afterwards that it should. Here's some massive craft hovering with impunity over a nuclear reactor, and the government, nothing to worry about.
And where is Indian Point exactly? Is it in the middle of the Hudson Valley? Is it just a couple of dozen miles from New York City? How close is it?
It is a few dozen miles north of New York City. It really is in the heart of the most active UFO locations. So it's right on the river, and it really has been that area a focal point, specifically in the 80s. I interviewed a guard who worked there after that initial sighting.
And what did he have to say? That was my next question, and I like the way that you read my mind. What did he describe, and what did he have to say?
Well, he's working the night shift one night, and the phone rings. It's one of the other guards, and he picks up the phone, and the man on the other end says, "They're back."
Right.
And he's like, "What's back?" And he said, "The UFO." So he, of course, had heard all the stories, and he goes running outside, and sure enough, same thing, massive craft, absolutely covering the sky from, practically can't see the sky. This thing is so huge. And everybody's running around like chickens with their heads cut off, don't know how to react, don't know what to do. And, they didn't want anybody to talk about it after that. But he said, I'm not using his name, but he said, what are they going to do to me? That was 30 years ago. I saw it. Everybody there saw it. And it wasn't the first time, and it certainly wasn't the last.
And did he describe the same thing that was in other reports, that the craft was, like directly over the reactor itself?
Yeah, the first incident, I think there was only one working reactor at the time, and it was definitely over that. I'm not sure if one or two were functional at that point, but it really didn't matter because it was so huge, it basically covered the sky over the entire plant.
And when we're dealing with New York City, Linda, we're dealing with New York City. It's the Hudson Valley, and for all intents and purposes, we can insert Manhattan. It's just 20 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
And the Indian Point facility, which is probably too close to New York City to begin with, and it shouldn't have been built there in the first place.
And it's built on a fault line.
And now we've got UFOs flying around in this. Why is it being covered up? I just don't understand it. I would think that the opposite would be true here.
Well, people ask me that all the time in regards to a lot of these incidences, and the only two things I can think of is they know it's something alien, extraterrestrial, and it is completely beyond their control. They're powerless to do anything about it. So they don't want to talk about it and admit they're powerless. Or it's some type of technology we have, and for some God unknown stupid reason, they're testing it out over nuclear power plants and scaring the hell out of everybody. Or perhaps it's a combination of the two. It is one of these most baffling things that you would think it would call for a major military presence and reaction and government statements, and instead, no, don't pay any attention to what's behind the curtain here. Go about your business.
What happened at Croton Falls? At the reservoir?
The reservoir there?
Yes.
There had been many sightings in and out of the reservoir. People have seen, again, this is not a specific incident. I've spoken to many people who either were driving by or followed lights to that location and would see craft hovering over the water, going into it, coming out of it. One of the more memorable sightings was a couple followed a craft that was hovering over the dam there, and they heard this loud noise, and from behind them they saw these military helicopters in hot pursuit of this object, which of course they had no chance of catching because it, again, took off in the blink of an eye. And, they tried pursuing it. And this, again, you see strange craft over over a major dam, you might want to react. I've seen this all the time with major power stations, substations, craft hovering over it, and they report it and no response is given. These are major vulnerabilities that, again, are being the airspace over them is being violated with impunity, and nobody says boo.
The sighting that you had back in 1979, how close, I know it's a small geographical area considering, but how close were you to Croton Falls and also to Indian Point? How close, how tight of an area is this?
Indian Point would probably have not been more than 10 miles away, but probably less than that. I'd have to, look at the map. Croton Falls, 20 miles possibly. The bulk of the sightings in the 80s took place in a kind of a 3 or 4 county area, 2 counties on either side of the Hudson River, which if you were in a car, you could traverse in 40 minutes from end to end of this. So obviously, if you were flying, these places are all just moments or minutes away.
And this is what I'm trying to piece together here. It sounds like it's almost like the Hudson Valley Triangle,
Yes.
in a strange way. But what about sightings outside of this area? Because it's a pretty tight area. What about sightings outside, 100 miles away, or north, south, east, west, or was this pretty much concentrated in this general area?
Well, as I mentioned before with the gentleman who wrote in about the Connecticut sighting, many of these triangular sightings spilled over Putnam and Dutchess border Connecticut. So, it was right there, and many people in Western Connecticut saw it as well. Sometimes as far as Albany, which is about 2 hours north of the city. And also northern New Jersey. The way we are situated, northern New Jersey is right there along the Hudson as well. And actually, the northern New Jersey area has had some absolutely phenomenal cases going back to the 60s and even earlier. So even though you can fan out, and I try to resist doing that because I try to concentrate on the Hudson Valley, but sightings that began in one part of the Hudson Valley ended up in New Jersey, or sightings that began in Connecticut ended up in the Hudson Valley. So it is a wider geographic area than just this specific valley. But the vast majority of the sightings were concentrated in this very small area.
Were you able to, and I told you earlier, I missed the Phoenix lights. I was there in Phoenix that night. I was there for the week. I didn't see anything. But then again, I was inebriated too most of the time. But anyway, I wasn't exactly looking to the skies and was looking for stuff. I did miss it. I was there. The entire city saw it. Me and my buddies did not. But how about you? Were you ever a witness to any of the events that happened between 82 and, say, 86, 87?
Fortunately, yes. None of the times I was actually out specifically looking. But a friend and I were coming back from going out to dinner with some friends, and I'm driving through the town of Washingtonville, a small little town, and my friend says, what's that? And she points off to the left, and there was a large field off to our left, and there was a V formation of, again, if you saw them, you know what I'm talking about, very soft, round lights. It was clearly one structure. It was, a point in the front and then 2 or 3 off in this V-shaped. And absolutely silently gliding. The term eerie definitely describes it. Your hair just stands up on end as you are looking at this huge, I would have to say it was 2 to 3 football fields in width, just silently gliding over this field, no noise, rolled down the window just to make sure, slowed down, couldn't hear anything, and it just silently went off, and there were some mountains there and disappeared off into the distance. And you take a deep breath and you're like, wow, this is a game changer. This is a life-changing experience for people. You just, unless you saw it, you just can't appreciate the feeling you get when you see you experience something like that.
Which sighting was that? What year?
That had to be about 85 or 86. I was not chronicling UFOs at the time, so I know it was August. And I don't know that it made the paper. I didn't see it in my local paper. But that brings up another interesting aspect. There were so many sightings that people stopped reporting them.
Right.
And I spoke to so many people who said, they're telling me about one particular thing. And I said, do you have any other sighting? Well, yeah, I saw it maybe 5, 6, 7 other times, but everybody did.
Hold it right there. Let's take that break that we need to take right at the top of the hour. That's my favorite subject, and I'm glad we're right there. All right, this is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, KGRA and the Game Changer Network. Tonight, Linda Zimmerman, the Hudson Valley UFOs. We'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
KGRA Radio. Intelligent Talk.
Are you a paranormal investigator, ghost hunter, or UFO skywatcher? If so, FNGinnovations.com has the product you definitely need in your investigations kit or go bag. Introducing the Morpholite Wide Beam Tactical Flashlights that put the light where you need it most. Traditional flashlights shine a focused round beam with limited line of sight in the dark. Morpholite Tactical Flashlights change all that, utilizing a revolutionary wide beam design to enable you to see safety hazards such as hanging wires and steel, pipes, and holes in the floor you just can't see with a focused round beam. In the field, where safety is paramount, a 180-degree beam increases orientation and peripheral vision in the dark. Morpholite flashlights are ideal for investigations in abandoned facilities such as houses and hospitals, factories, caves, and tunnels. Avoid those low-hanging tree branches that poke your eyes in the woods. Visit FNGinnovations.com to see a full line of tactical lights and accessories. That's FNGinnovations.com.
Now you can find all your favorite talk radio shows live, all in one place at TalkStreamLive.com. Listen from anywhere, office, home, or in your car. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com and click on one of the many live talk show hosts you want to listen to. It's free and easy. No computer? Download the smartphone apps. Never miss your favorite talk show. Find them all at TalkStreamLive.com.
Hey everybody, what's up? Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and check this out. The 2015 MUFON Symposium will be held this September 24th through the 27th in beautiful downtown Irvine, California. Expanding ufology, opening new doors in academia, industry, and media. Former Defense Minister of Canada Paul Hellyer will be there in person. Former CNN news anchor Cheryl Jones, TV news journalist Jaime Maussan, and MUFON's chief photo analyst Mark D'Antonio. They're just a few of the growing list of names for the 2015 event. It's September 24th through the 27th at the beautiful Hotel Irvine. Get your tickets today at MUFONSymposium.com. That's MUFONSymposium.com. Go Beckley Tepe.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't to stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
All right, welcome back. This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. This is Femme Fatale Week. It is. Didn't mean it to be, but it is. Linda, I have to ask you, in ufology, and I disagree with this, but it comes up from time to time. It tends to be, most people think that it's a man's world, and here you are. Do you feel that it's a man's world, ufology, or do you think that it's okay being a woman, or are you rolling that rock uphill because you're a woman, or do you feel that? I disagree with it. I think that it seems to be a level playing field.
I have never felt discriminated against in any sense being a woman in the field, but I think it is heavily male dominated. If you ever go to any conferences or put on any UFO show, some shows are trying to change that, but I don't have any problem with it. I don't see, I don't look at myself as a woman in the field. So no problem for me.
And the audiences, the attendees, I think it's pretty split down the middle. If anything, I feel more of the female side there. I don't know. That's just me, but I attend and speak at a lot of them, and it just seems equally represented. I don't feel it one way or the other. But this week, and it wasn't any intention. It's just the way that we just booked the best. And this week, it's all women on Fade to Black this week.
Yeah, audiences are definitely equally mixed. But hey, I'll go in the femme fatale rank. I have no problem with that.
Right on. Well,
I've been called worse.
I'm with you. Me too. No doubt. Last night I had Serena Wright Taylor on and Dana Dunn, and they're both astrologers and contactees too as well. And I had asked them last night, why do you think? Because this I definitely believe is true. I think women have the ability to detect and to speak and to see the paranormal differently than men. Do you think that that's the case, or is it just me? I don't know, because I'm a guy. I look at it that way. But do you think that's true, that women are more connected?
Thinking of the people I know who are very gifted in that realm, the majority of them are female, but I do know some very sensitive, in the psychic sense, men as well. Maybe women just feel more comfortable talking about it. Maybe it's not such a manly thing to talk about psychic, paranormal topics. I don't know.
Yeah, you might be right. You might be right. I'm just an observer. Okay, I'm on the outside looking in. Now, what? See, this is the thing. You had your two sightings that you spoke about tonight, 1986 and 1979. Did you report either sighting?
No, never entered my mind because I thought it was pointless. I saw the way, a lot of newspapers and TV were treating the subject, and I knew what I saw, and what was the point of, inviting ridicule.
Well, there's that aspect. Look, I've had a few sightings in my life. I made the attempt of reporting one. I called up my friends over at MUFON, and this is 2015, so I'm going to guess, I don't know the exact date, but it was 2008-ish, 2009, 2008. And I didn't follow up with MUFON. And, and I knew the director, and I knew, people over there, and I didn't do it. I just didn't do it. And the other sightings that I've had, I didn't report those either. And when you look at the Hudson Valley and the amount of population that is there from Manhattan to New Haven, Connecticut, over to the Hudson Valley, that is a big chunk of people that live there. And these sightings were going on. Certainly there were thousands of reports. How many witnesses do you think didn't report anything at all?
Who didn't report?
Yeah. Hundreds of thousands?
Hundreds of thousands. I really am not exaggerating. When you go out there today and you talk to these people, and they'll say, well, I saw it, but my whole family saw it, and everybody in the block came out and saw it, and I know I talked to the people at work, and they were all out seeing it. And so if you realize how many years it went on, and how for everyone who stood up and reported it, took the time, there could be 100 people that didn't. There could be 1,000 people who didn't. And like you said, the population here is so dense and over such a wide area. It has to have been at least hundreds of thousands of people who, at the very least, saw something, glimpsed something, if not had something even far more intense.
Do you think the reason why people don't report, there's certainly the ridicule factor, but they've moved on? You know what I mean? The incident happened. It was cool. Okay, we saw it. Now let's get back to the Yankee game.
Yeah, in some regards. But so many people got nothing from their attempts to report it. There was an amazing case in the 80s that actually involved circular craft in this one section of the town of Monroe. Seems to be one street there, one length of road that, for some reason, a lot of circular craft, a lot of landing circular craft. And this one woman, there's this intense light shining through her window, and the next thing she knows, it's morning, and she tells her husband, who was a science teacher, and he's, yeah, right, it was a dream. I need to see proof. So he goes outside, comes back in, ranting, call the police, call the mayor, call everybody. What had happened is they were doing construction, and they had a massive truckload of sand delivered. So they had this hill of sand, to make concrete. And it was there the night before. The following morning, the sand was completely gone, except for several concentric rings about 20 feet in diameter, impressed into the driveway. So either it blew this sand pile away, or for some reason took it. Well, I don't know. But all that was left was a few concentric rings of sand pressed and fused into the blacktop. So, unfortunately, they took photos of it, which are just some of the most remarkable photos. They tried calling the state police, and they called everybody and were told, we had so many sightings. We're not sending anybody out for this. What are we going to do about it? So even those who were so enthusiastic about letting the world know and trying to report this got absolutely nowhere.
I'm looking at the pictures now. Yeah, that's pretty nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I don't know what to make of that. And the shots of this object in the sky right off of the road. Wow, there it is, right off of the freeway in Monroe. And I see what you're saying, how you're describing it too. Wow, that's interesting. And this is a case I'm going to look into this as soon as we're done with the show. I'm going to go back. Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that to me is remarkable evidence. And I want to throw it out there. They have had their driveway repaved, but they never dug up that section. And they said if I got a scientific team out there, we could peel back that blacktop, take samples, and the evidence is still there.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Now, things, what has happened? Hold on for a second. Let's see here. Linda, a coworker. I have to pay attention to Twitter sometimes. It blasts by me really fast, but I just caught this. Linda, a coworker told me about a huge daytime triangle in Poughkeepsie, seen in 1985 by workers at a Denny's, and that there was missing time involved with this case. Do you know about that one?
Not specifically, but Poughkeepsie has also been a very active area. There was a massive triangle hovered over the local newspaper office, and they were told not to report it. But I would be very much interested in getting more information about the missing time, because actually that's another aspect we haven't even touched on. I've kind of nicknamed the Hudson Valley Abduction Alley.
Right.
Because there are just so many missing time, abduction contactee stories that it just blew my mind. I did not expect that when I began the research.
Who was the, I'm totally with you. And as people start to surface and approach you, what the first time, take me back to that first report of missing time and contact. Who was it and what happened?
Well, this was the case that actually got me started in the UFO research. It was a friend of a friend who was, represented to me as very credible, and he was going to be our first interview for the film. And so invited him to my house, which I never did after that. And we started the cameras rolling, and I'm sitting 2 feet away from him and interviewing him. And I'm expecting him to say, I had some missing time here once. And it turned out it went back to when he was a kid in the 1950s. Started seeing this egg-shaped craft and these small little figures. He would have missing time. These things would come into his room. He grows up. He has the same things start happening. For instance, one night he's on his way to the store. He sees this egg-shaped craft. To him, only a second has gone by, and this craft takes off. He gets to the store, and they're closing because 2 hours has passed. The next day, he has uncontrollable nosebleeds, finds scoop marks in his leg, in the back of his neck. In ensuing years, his children all have abductee experiences. And the really mind-blowing aspect was his mother. She's in her 80s, God bless her. I interviewed her. She started having her first missing time experiences in the 1930s.
Wow.
So this was my first case. This was dipping my toe into ufology, and I jump feet first into a multi-generational abduction case.
How do you feel when you hear about beings in a room and you're hearing these reports, because you have to remain objective. Obviously, you have to approach it as a skeptic, and you have to research, and you have to do this. But when somebody hits you with this, how does it make you feel? And are you looking at them into their eyeballs? And you know where I'm going with this.
Right. Part of my work with the paranormal over the last 20 years has been to judge the credibility of the witnesses, regardless of what the experience was. And I think I've gotten, pretty good at that. I'm not saying somebody couldn't pull the wool over my eyes, but I tend to know when somebody's telling the truth. There's a certain look in their eyes. There's a certain posture, body language,
right?
The tempo of their voice and their breathing. And at the very least, you can say, wow, they had something traumatic happen to them. And with this man, my skin was crawling the whole time. The truth of his experiences was just undeniable. You could just absolutely feel it. You felt his excitement, his fear, his trepidation. It was remarkable, and I have. It's not anything I have gotten used to, even doing it, all these years. Some people, not so credible, and you take their story and you're polite, and but others just make your skin crawl, and you just feel so vulnerable, I think would be the word, once you've interviewed somebody like that, and you say, well, if this happened to them, this could happen to anybody. This could happen to me.
Right.
And again, I did not expect this. I thought the bulk of the sightings where I saw lights in the sky, a triangle or a disc went by, and the abduction chapter turned out to be the biggest one in the first book. And these cases still are coming up on a regular basis.
And what's the consistency? There's a thread as a researcher. Now you've witness after witness and contactee after contactee, and you're compiling all of this information. What is the consistent thread that happens from case to case?
That they're multi-generational the majority of the time. If you had a contactee abductee experience, chances are your children will, and your parents had something occur as well. Missing time, delayed memories. There was a fascinating case from 1963 where a family was coming home in the family station wagon from seeing a movie. Massive craft lands in front of them. The mother and the kids all experience this. They're 45 minutes late getting home. They don't all recall it till 20 years later. They're sitting down to like a family dinner, and all of a sudden one of them says, do you remember what happened on the way back from the movies? And like a switch going on, they all remember the craft. They all remember the experiences. They still don't know what happened during the rest of that 45 minutes, but they all recalled at the same time seeing that craft landing in front of them.
Interesting. And what about, did you hit the Holy Grail? Were any of these abductions or contacts on any of the magic dates? 1981, 82, 83, 84, 85?
The big sightings dates?
Yes.
Yes, some of them.
No kidding.
Some of them would say, I saw it and I thought I was only outside for a few minutes, and I went back in and I'm like, well, how did an hour and a half go by? I must have been out there longer than I thought. And I kept hearing this time and again, that yes, the big dates, and many of them occurred during those years. But I have to mention that the abduction missing time cases go back till at least the 1920s in this area.
Your own sightings, the one that you had in 79 and the other one in 86. Oh, by the way, were those your only two?
No, I've seen quite a few things. Being an amateur astronomer, I'm out at night, and I've seen a lot of strange lights moving, moving erratically in the sky. My most recent one was in Pine Bush, which, is
right there.
known here as the UFO capital of the Northeast.
Yes.
Saw what at first I thought was just an aircraft or perhaps a satellite. I had these huge binoculars, got the binoculars on it, and found out that it was traveling below the clouds. It had no wings. It appeared to be more spherical. I can't discount it was some sort of military drone, but I saw no form of propulsion, and it was moving, and again, below the clouds.
Yeah, Pine Bush is right there, and if I'm not from there, but it's to the south. Is it to the south of Hudson Valley?
No, it is in the Hudson Valley. It's in the same county, Orange County, where I live now, and it's I don't know, maybe 20 minutes from the Hudson River itself. And when we say Pine Bush, that is one small town. That whole Pine Bush era of the 90s, which, again, not many people know about, was a huge series of sightings. That happened within a several town radius. And again, a sighting that may have begun in Pine Bush could have ended in Connecticut. So, people think the Hudson Valley sightings ended the late 80s. Not at all. Pine Bush exploded just as the main bulk of the Hudson Valley sightings were fading. And they continue to this day.
That's okay. We're gonna be up against a break, and we're gonna talk about Pine Bush, West Point, Newburgh, Kingston, that whole area when we come back after the break. But what I wanted to ask you was, with the two sightings that you did have, 86 and 79, when you're listening to somebody else give you a report, and through your research, what you saw. You know what you saw in 1979. You know what you saw in 1986. So how does that help you when you're listening to somebody take a report?
Well, if they use the same terms as I have used to describe it, or they, describe it in similar ways, and I see they have a similar reaction, it certainly points out to me that this was a legitimate sighting. So I kind of feel sorry for ufologists who have never had, an intense sighting of their own, because now I can work from that frame of reference, like, been there, done that,
right.
Know what you're talking about.
Exactly. What is really funny is the 3 or 4 sightings, and I say because I don't know what is man-made and what isn't. None of us do. But okay, let's say 4 sightings. Each one of them were completely different. Okay, I had a triangle sighting. I had my wife and I had this ball of light thing that came out of the sky and came, crashing down into the valley here. Very unique sighting. I had a triangle sighting. I had this other sighting that was like I don't even know. It's like a spinning satellite that was way, 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 way high up in the sky. But they weren't the same. Mm-hmm. But I do know that when I'm talking to somebody and they're giving me the description of what they saw, I know what I saw in each one, and each incident was completely different, but it had unique attributes to it. So when I'm listening to somebody just like you, I can go back and know what I saw, and I know I use it as a frame of reference, but I also use it as a BS meter too as well. I can
yes.
Yes. Well, I've had some people tell me some pretty amazing things, and I've just sat and just went, you know what? You've seen too many movies, man, and I know what I get it. You want to jump in the boat and have your own incident. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I have to I disconnect. You know what I mean? And then when I talk to other, I can tell when somebody else has seen something for real, and they don't know where to take it or how to describe it, because it is something that you really can't put your finger on.
Yeah, there's that visceral impact gives some level of authenticity that cannot be faked.
Yes. And with and I wanted to ask you, we're going to be up against our last break, and can you hang with me for another 10 minutes?
Sure.
We'll do an encore if you don't mind.
Okay.
But the sighting that you had in 1979 and going through all of the reports that you and I have read over the years about the Hudson Valley, the sighting that you had in 1979 wasn't like anything else that happened in the Hudson Valley. How do you explain that one away?
Yeah, that is absolutely unique. I don't explain it. I just, I go with it and say I saw something phenomenal. How 3 objects were able to come together as one. Now, I know across the country or around the world, sometimes people have seen objects merging, but that is not something typical for this area.
Right.
It was just beyond the physics I was learning in school at the time. That's for sure.
Let's take that break, and we'll be back right after this. This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Linda Zimmerman is with us. Hudson Valley. Let's just go with the East Coast, because the sightings have been going on there forever. When we come back, we'll be discussing more of it. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow us on Twitter @JChurchRadio. Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. We'll be back right after this short break. Stay with us.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
Attention, all Fade or Not. Studio Dome has a special deal on their SD1 Bluetooth speaker. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on their banner, enter the promo code Jimmy, and you get $40 off and free shipping on the SD1. It's voice activated, comes with a USB antenna, cables, and a carry bag. Never listen to your phone, tablet, or laptop speakers ever again. It's the only way to listen to Fade to Black. That's jimmychurchradio.com, Studio Dome banner, promo code Jimmy. Go Beckley Teppy.
This is Kristen, Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
Hey everybody, what's up? Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and check this out. The 2015 MUFON Symposium will be held this September 24th through the 27th in beautiful downtown Irvine, California. Expanding ufology, opening new doors in academia, industry, and media. Former Defense Minister of Canada Paul Hellyer will be there in person. Former CNN news anchor Cheryl Jones, TV news journalist Jaime Maussan, and MUFON's chief photo analyst Mark D'Antonio. They're just a few of the growing list of names for the 2015 event. It's September 24th through the 27th at the beautiful Hotel Irvine. Get your tickets today at MUFONSymposium.com. That's MUFONSymposium.com. Go Beckley Teppy.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black, rolling in to the late side of the fourth quarter here. Tonight, Linda Zimmerman is with us. I just got a crazy email here a few minutes ago, Linda, that I want to read to you. It goes like this. It says, I lived on Long Island at the time, and I saw a football field-sized craft. I told my story to the Long Island UFO Network head, John Ford, who was later arrested for weird crimes like attempted poisoning of a politician's toothpaste. That's crazy. I think he is now in a psych ward. Have you heard of this? I wonder what happened to all of the reports he recorded, and I often wonder what happened to him.
I was working one case where this story does sound familiar, that they, were tried to report it to someone who was later on arrested. So that may be the case. I don't know. And if that is the case, how much credibility can we give to those reports? I don't know. There was also another group at the time in Staten Island, which was run by police officers who did remarkable work. Unfortunately, that man passed away, and I tried contacting his children because I want to know where these case files are. There's a lot of good case files out there somewhere. So if anybody knows, get in touch with us, because not everybody reported things to the major reporting centers. There were a lot of small groups that sprung up as a result of all the activity here. And I have a feeling there's hundreds of cases in basements and attics around the area.
Sure. And now Hudson Valley, I say sort of, but it slowed down after 1986. But Pine Bush picked up where the Hudson Valley reports and sightings kind of slowed down, but Pine Bush started in the 90s. And were there similarities between the sightings between the two areas?
There were some massive triangles, but a lot of the craft were smaller. And I should point out that Pine Bush UFO sightings also began back in the 1920s, were quite prevalent in the 60s and 70s, but really took off in the 90s. That was the era of Pine Bush, where hundreds of people would drive hours every night to park along the old farm roads and watch the light shows. If you're interested in Pine Bush in particular, there's a couple of books, Pine Bush Phenomena. C. Burns has a Pine Bush archive where he is trying to collect every account, every eyewitness story. But a lot of the activity also was ground-based. And this is very unique. There was a lot of craft and lights on the ground, in the woods, lights moving across fields at ground level, flashes of light, strobes of light, which I actually experienced just last year.
What?
Yeah, on that same night that I saw that circular craft. And this was very unique because I swear it was like something read my mind. One of our group, it was late and we was going home, and I was thinking, oh, he's going to miss something. And I said, what's going to happen as soon as you leave. And before I could finish my words, this bright flash of light erupted out of the woods 50 feet from us that lit everybody up like it was daylight.
Wow.
And I was so charged by that because I was just thinking that, and it happened, and it kind of gave me the creeps. I'm like, did they read my thoughts? I mean, it was very, very bizarre. I checked with the National Weather Service right away. The nearest thunderstorm was 70 miles away. The sky was clear. It was not rogue lightning. One of the witnesses described it as like an M80 going off in the woods without the sound.
Right.
Just this bright flashbulb type effect. And I don't think I slept a wink that night because it really affected me. I felt like it was something personal, which so many witnesses in Pine Bush for decades have said the same thing, that it's bizarre lights. It seems to interact with people in very unique, intense ways. It's a whole other ball of UFO wax in Pine Bush. It is the capital of weird.
Yeah, certainly. And would you think that it is possible to be interdimensional and maybe spirit-like as opposed to a physical craft?
One of the C. Burns, who has the archive, he said, to me one day, which is where he goes, I'm not sure there are any, physical craft there. The nature of the sightings is so weird and unusual that it does seem to be something more energetic, at the very least, if not interdimensional, spiritual. I don't know what you want to call it, but yet at the same time, for 90 years, traditional, if we could use that word in this case, traditional UFOs have also been spotted. So you name the high strangeness, Pine Bush has it.
Well, and you described it yourself. You said you had the thought, and boom, it happened. It sounds like there was some type of communication going on there, and I don't want to put thoughts or words into your mouth, but that's exactly. Did you see anything physical? Did you see a craft, or are you jumping to ET a little bit too quickly here?
I did not see anything physical. I just saw that brilliant sudden flash of light, and we took off into the woods. We looked everywhere, and as I said, the scientist in me immediately jumps on the internet, checking the National Weather Service to just make sure if there was any meteorological phenomena that could account for it. But it absolutely originated in the woods at ground level. No doubt in my mind.
That's kind of creepy.
It's very creepy. I tell you, I did not, no kidding, I did not sleep that night. It really affected me more than any of the other experiences or sightings I had.
Well, Linda, what do you think you saw? What do you think it was?
I just don't know, but if I had to swear in court, I would say it was personal.
Interesting.
It was something that was connected, and that's what has been happening at least since the 90s. People would see a light moving away and they'd think, oh, I wish I'd get a better glimpse, and it would move back towards them. Or
Right.
they'd think, if something's going to happen, it's got to happen now because I have to get home. And brilliant lights will suddenly rise up out of the woods. The author of the Pine Bush Phenomena and this C. Burns, they saw what they described as a Ferris wheel of lights rise up out of the ground above treetop level and then go back down. It's like things are happening on the ground, under the ground, as well as in the skies there. And I really can't impress upon people, if you've never heard of Pine Bush, read about it in my books or somebody else's books. Go there if you can. It is high strangeness is the only term I can think of to describe it.
What about Indian burial grounds or Indian folklore? Anything like that tied to Pine Bush?
Not specifically to Pine Bush. There are some Indian legends of people from the stars, who came down and taught them things. In the strangeness department, we had the local Native Americans had something called a masingwa, which very much sounded like Bigfoot. Not to bring in that strangeness, but there's a lot of Bigfoot sightings in upstate New York and even some in the Hudson Valley. So there have been, let me put it this way, unique creature sightings in Pine Bush as well that defy all categories.
Right.
So it's tough to put your finger on saying what it is and why it's happening.
I got to thank you for coming on the show. I had a great time tonight. Before I let you go, the one thing that I have to go back and visit here for a second, since 1986, have the brakes been pumped, so to speak? Has everything come to a complete halt, or is there still a continuation of the V-shaped and giant craft in the Hudson Valley?
There are still a lot of triangle sightings on a more modest scale. There was just a mini flap last summer in the area of small triangles. People described them as like two-person triangles. There was a remarkable cylinder sighting that I wrote about in my book. Daylight, massive cylinder, pinned to the sky in very high winds, and filmed by many people. The FAA, air traffic control, Air Force, nobody wanted to hear about it. Nobody paid any attention to the many reports. So we still have a lot of things going on, and we're still being ignored.
I look forward to seeing you very shortly. It's coming up on us very quickly at the MUFON Symposium, which is September 24th through the 27th here in Southern California in Irvine. You will be there. I invite all of our audience to come on out and hang out with us and to meet Linda, and I really look forward to hearing you speak out at the symposium, and we'll see you in. Oh man, is it 60 days away already? Today's 6:30. Yeah, we're just a couple of months away. It's coming up on us very quickly. Are you going to be speaking anywhere before the symposium?
Just locally here, no major events. That is the first more national one.
Okay.
But yeah, if people go to my website, they're going to see where I'm going to be. My next event is actually a Comic-Con where I'll be with my zombie books and
right
so
on.
A little bit of everything.
And what's the website, really quick?
GoToZim.com, GoToZim.com.
There you go. Thank you, Linda. I had a great time.
Well, thank you. I've had a wonderful time as well.
And we'll see you in a couple of months. Thank you, Linda.
All right. Take care.
Linda Zimmerman, everybody. Wow. And, before I blast off this quick break and come back, I got to tell you, the Hudson Valley UFO situation from 1982, New Year's Eve, 1981, through 1986. Oh, check this out. This is it. Is this Linda? Somebody just tweeted a picture of her armed and dangerous. Before I retweet that, I just want to make sure that is really her. Dark Star, tell me that that's her, and I'll tweet that out. That is a crazy picture. Anyway, it is. Go and read and look at the video, look at the photographs, and the eyewitness testimony, of which it is literally in the thousands. It is one of the craziest, most documented UFO incidents. Well, if you can call it that. Like I said, it's going back 100 years. And that entire area from West Point to Pine Bush and on north, the Hudson River runs north and south down into Manhattan. But that entire area. And Pine Bush is completely nuts. So anyway, I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be back in just a second. And I'm going to talk about the organization Free. They got a new name, or an endorser. I'll tell you about it when I come back. This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. I'll be back right after this.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Hi, this is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Today, everybody, the Fadernauts and planet Earth is vaping. And I'm very proud to announce our very own e-juice. When we were approached by City of Angels Vapor about Fade to Black e-juice, I wanted to make sure that it was the very best and that the flavors were something that I could create myself. And we did just that. Introducing Fade to Black Fader Loops. This will take you right back to Saturday morning cartoons and your favorite bowl of Fruity Loopy cereal. Just click on the banner or go to www.coavapor.com. Enter the promo code Jimmy for the Fader Not special. That's www.coavapor.com. Go back, Lee Tappy.
Imagine no longer being tied down to your computer, but having the freedom to take live talk radio with you anywhere you go. TalkStream Live introduces our first ever iPhone application. The talk shows you follow now follow you. And your iPhone is now the fastest and easiest way to stay connected to the best talk radio on the internet. Let TalkStream Live transform the way you listen to radio. Listen to live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mobile talk radio from TalkStream Live. Now available in the iTunes App Store.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And this is Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers. We're of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
Attention, all Fadernauts. Studio Dome has a special deal on their SD1 Bluetooth speaker. Just go to JimmyChurchRadio.com, click on their banner, enter the promo code Jimmy, and you get $40 off and free shipping on the SD1. It's voice activated, comes with a USB antenna, cables, and a carry bag. Never listen to your phone, tablet, or laptop speakers ever again. It's the only way to listen to Fade to Black. That's JimmyChurchRadio.com, Studio Dome banner, promo code Jimmy. Go back, Lee Tappy. All right, welcome back. Fade to Black, the Tuesday edition, Femme Fatale Week. Oh, yeah. Linda Zimmerman. What a great show. All right. That's right. This is Bespoke Radio for the Masses on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. An announcement came out over the weekend. I didn't get to it last night. But check this out. Oh, dear audience, oh mine. Are you ready? We know about FREE, which is the Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters. It's called FREE, F-R-E-E. Go look it up and go check it out. Now, it has a new name tied to it. Edgar Mitchell. Yes, that Edgar Mitchell. It is now called the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters. That's right. The press release read, the executive director is Dr. Rudy Schild, emeritus professor of astrophysics at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics at Harvard University. Dr. Edgar Mitchell has agreed to the naming of our new organization on his behalf. Now, I almost need to reserve comment. This is either very, very, very huge and big, and it means something, or it's something strange. And what I mean is, what is Edgar Mitchell trying to do here, and what is he trying to say? We all know he's outspoken and he's very vocal about ET presence and UFOs and sightings and so forth. We understand this, but this is a very official position to put himself into in a very public sense. Again, it is now called the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters. There you go. What say you? I'd like to know. Okay. Oh, also, I just read Myra just tweeted, why does Jimmy hate talking about ghosts so much? I don't hate talking about ghosts. I love ghosts. Look, I had my own little thing that happened to me once. I know I've told the story a couple of times over the last couple of years, but Myra, in case you missed the show, I had my own thing, and it was, oh my goodness, it was probably I have to think exactly, 1987. I don't think 1988 had happened yet. So I'm going to say late 1987 here in Hollywood. That particular evening, we had an award, the magazine that I had running at the time, we had an awards show out at the country club in Reseda. And after that show that night, which probably ended at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was completely sober, by the way. I wasn't drinking that night. I was running this thing. And I jump in my car. I'm going to meet my friends back in Hollywood at this back house in Hollywood on Bronson and Franklin, across the street, actually, from Scientology. But anyway. So I pulled up to the house, Myra, and as I'm sitting there in my car and I'm waiting for a carload of friends to pull up behind me, I get there first. And I'm waiting. And I pull up and I'm sitting in the driveway. The house is off to my left, and I'm sitting in my car. And I could see about 20 feet from me, the house, the front porch, big front porch. And on this front porch in the front of the house was this huge living room window, and I'm going to guess and say that this was like 8 feet by 4 feet tall. Big one-piece glass window. Big window. And as I'm looking over at the house, I'm just glancing over to my left, and I'm looking, and it's lit up by the moon. The house is white, by the way. And I see the curtains pull to the side, and a face sticks out and looks at me. And I went, oh, I guess the roommate is home. I forget what her name was. Oh, okay. Because the car with the other people hadn't pulled up yet, so I'm assuming it was a roommate, her roommate. And I get out of my car and I go up to the front door, and I'm waiting for the front door to open, and it doesn't open. And I'm like, what the heck? And I'm a little ticked off. So I knock on the door. And the curtains were now placed back, so I couldn't see into the house. But I'm rapping on the door. Nobody's answering. And I eventually pound on the door a little bit. And I'm angry. And I wait there for a few minutes. I go back and get in my car, and I'm sitting and I'm waiting. And I'm getting angry about this whole thing. And eventually they come home. They get out of the car, and I'm like, what's her name is here? And she looked out the front window and looked right at me, and now she won't open up the door. And this girl says to me, no, she's not here. She's over at her boyfriend's house. I said, what? Well, there's somebody in your house. So all of us, we unlock the door, and we go in, and we look around, and there's nobody there. We look in the back, we look in the front, and there's nobody there. And I'm a bit freaked. In fact, we're all freaked. We're thinking serial killer. We're thinking burglary, something. Somebody was in the house. But we look around, and there's no, well, first off, there's nobody there, but there was no, unlocked windows, broken this, that, nobody broke it, nothing. Nobody was there. And I'm a bit freaked. It was the next day. Maybe 2 days later, but my memory says it was the next day. The landlord is over at the house and tells us this story. Remember, this is the back house. And tells us this story that his son, the year before, had committed suicide, had lit himself on fire inside the house, the front house. And we went, and he told us I wouldn't go in the house, but I looked in the back window, and you could see this little burn spot on the ground in front of the fireplace. And that freaked us out. And look, all I got to say, Myra, that I never talk about ghosts, I know what I saw that night. I saw the curtain pull to the side and a face. I don't know if it was a man or a woman, I don't know. But a face looked out the window and looked at me in my car. And it was 20 feet away. There was no question about what I saw. I saw the curtains pull to the side and the face looked out and looked at me. Just like we are all used to seeing somebody pulling curtains to the side and looking out a window. We've all done it. We've all seen it. And I saw it that night. And I can't explain it. And it was 15 minutes later or whatever, half hour later when everybody got home and we unlocked the door and I told them everybody the story. And there was supposed to be nobody in the house. We went in, nobody there. I saw what I saw. Was it this kid's ghost? I don't know. But I'll tell you this, it was real. I saw it with mine own 2 eyes. This is Fade to Black. Femme Fatale Week. Tomorrow night, Betsy Lewis is with us. Thank you, Linda Zimmerman. Great show tonight. Go do some research on the Hudson Valley UFOs. That's your research for the night. Thank you, Linda. Great show. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Kamarian. Show's produced by Hilton J. Paul, Mark D. Kovar, LJ3, Renee, Mark Dunbar, and Jonas. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Viteau, and Mark D. Kovar. Fady by Dale. Webmaster is Method of Signaling. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. Syndication is KGRA The Planet. Tomorrow night, Betsy Lewis, right here for Femme Fatale Week, Part 3. That's right, Thursday night, Fader night. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow us on Twitter, @JChurchRadio. Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Everybody be safe. See ya.